Hey, everybody. As you guys know, I am attorney Michael Eline. I am an attorney licensed to practice law in Texas, in California, and I do personal injury as the way that I support myself and my family. But of course, you know that my passion is government accountability operations, the First Amendment, holding law enforcement and politicians accountable and making sure that they have the same rights, duties, and obligations as anyone else. Actually, they have more obligations and duties and the same rights as anyone else. And so you guys know that I like to hold the government accountable. And since one of my buddies got locked up, Chile de Castro, and ultimately with the collective help of everyone, we won his case on appeal and were able to get another case dismissed based upon the fact that we were going to win that as well. I got more involved on YouTube and helping people out because I do have a background in appellate law and civil rights. And so one of the most popular topics that I've gone through is civil asset forfeiture. This is where the police just come and take away your property. And I'm going to go into the history of civil asset forfeiture laws. But basically, it has its traditions in English common law, actually English maritime law, which sort of plays into the hands of the sovereign citizens movement and those guys, right, who think everything pretty much is maritime and admiralty law, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about that history and about how it has its roots in English maritime law. And basically, it was a scheme that allowed the government to legally seize people's property without a criminal charge being levied against them. And it was brought over to the American colonies. And it was used primarily to combat privacy and enforce customs laws. And then, the government could see ships and things like that. So it was a really big, powerful, potent thing used during the days of, the pirates and the Blackbeard, matey, all those guys, right? But ultimately, there was an expansion in the early republic. And so I have heard another lawyer who I really like, I think his name's Latos. I think he insinuated that it's pretty common and it's kind of accepted throughout history. And so I get the impression that I got is that it wasn't that big of a deal. But so I think it is kind of a big deal. And I think it conflicts with American common law tradition. And if any of you have been following my channel or are paid subscribers, you'll understand a little bit about American common law and the history of the bar exam. What makes America different than the Roman civil law democracies? The fact that we're a republic bound by the chains of the Constitution and, of course, the Bill of Rights. So what I'm going to do is get into the history of the civil asset forfeiture laws in America, why I think that they're unlawful, and why I also believe that there is technology that law enforcement might be using to be able to detect if you have cash in your vehicles. And that could be one of the reasons pretextually or otherwise that they may pull certain people over than others. I don't know this to be true. I'm just hypothesizing as a lawyer because they do have all this amazing technology. So we're going to go over some of the technology that we know for sure exists. And we'll talk a little bit about how that could push people into wanting digital currency, which is even worse because that allows them to get their social credit score system into place, which we don't want in a free country. That's what they do in unfree communist countries. When you disagree with the government, they lower your social credit score. You say something that offends someone at a learning institution or in the administrative state, right? Then they lower your credit score so you can't buy things or remove money from your bank account. We don't want that because we're free people and we don't believe in that kind of nonsense. So I'm going to get into it. But first, let me just kick off the show just to give you the old regular disclaimer. And then we'll get into some really cool attorney observations and clips, and we'll go from there. To another edition of Ask Michael Eline. This is where I teach people the law in an unorthodox manner by using examples that we see in the news, case law briefs, but it's all about exposing the Leviathan and its instrumentalities and taking back your rights. Know the law and mean to keep it well. Come here to learn from an expert to know your right. Make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because we never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel. All right, guys. So first I want to do a comm check because last time I did a show, we weren't getting any comms. So first of all, I want to make sure we've got comms that you guys can hear me talking right now. So give me a bunch of ones if you can hear me. Mama Lion, Brett Ray, BZ Watchdog. Good seeing you, brother. That's right. A road pirate, matey. And Beck, yeah, and Mama Lion. And let me see, Jeff, Just Willie. Thanks for joining me, bro. And let me know if you guys aren't getting my notifications. I'm getting a lot of people saying that they're not getting notifications. So I don't know what the heck is going on. But Beck, yeah, let me know, and I'll do my best to try to find an alternative way to notify people when we're going to have these shows, because this is a really good one, because I'm really going to get into the underpinnings of civil asset forfeiture laws and how crazy it is that we even have them at all. And hopefully we'll have some good attorney observation videos as well that we can get into it over with, but with you. But basically, again, civil asset forfeiture laws derive from English common law. And during the 1600s and 1800s, in that period, they were used heavily to combat piracy. And you could actually, seize the assets, of the pirates, their ships or whatever, if it was deemed that they were, engaged in an unlawful or even not in an unlawful activity. But for example, if the ship had loot aboard it, you could just presume that it was property of the crown and seize it. And so, anyways, I don't want to get too far into privateering and legalized pirating and all these things like that, but I just wanted to just share with you that the initial history of civil asset forfeiture laws derives its heritage, its roots, like all American law, pretty much from English common law, but in this case, a category of English common law called maritime law, which typically has to do with admiralty law, has a lot to do with military law, but more than anything, the law of the sea, because we're all born free men upon the land, but anything that has to do with the sea is commerce or commercial, and so it takes on a different character. And so when the law of the sea comes upon the land, that's where people like the sovereign citizens movement, as well as the Moorish, same kind of deal, right? A sovereign type movement. That's where they take exception, and rightly so in many ways. So one thing I want to always share with you guys is that I'm a legal historian, and so I don't just dismiss people based upon what the administrative state or CNN or PMSNBC or the ADL or Southern Poverty Law Center just creates out of thin air to try and characterize or label someone to be a friend or foe. What I try to do is dissect certain things and understand why do people think this way, and then I'll share it with you based upon my lawyerly capabilities. And if I'm wrong, and so be it, but if I'm right, I'm right. But ultimately, I let my audience decide, right, Mama Lion? Good seeing you, Burn Thy Priest. Nice seeing you, man. So we'll get really quick. I just wanted to share something with you. Around the 1800s, there was an expansion in the early republic. And yes, I'm reading off a prompter because I want to get through this material quickly, because it took me a long time to prepare all this stuff. Believe me, there's no lawyers out there who are sharing this type of information at this level. Okay, so this is a historical review of where do these civil asset forfeiture laws come from. And so far we can see they come from commercial laws based upon the seizure of assets on the sea, maritime law. But then there's an expansion, and I believe this was wrong, because I don't believe that it was harmonized with the Bill of Rights when this took effect. But our courts were still heavily reliant upon English common law, and the Supreme Court had not established precedents at this point in time to sort of strike down things that may be unconstitutional and deny us our right of notice and opportunity, which was the primary thing that changed and shaped and separated us from English common law, is that no matter what, we would have notice and opportunity to respond before something could be seized or before a right could be taken away from us. Give me a bunch of ones if you guys understand so far what notice and opportunity means. It's important to me that you guys understand that, because it's a major underpinning of what makes the republic function and what makes us different from all other countries on the planet. The idea behind notice and opportunity is that, for example, let's say somebody accuses your neighbor of doing something and they're a high party official. Let's say you're a single party state like California, and Comrade Newsom's daughter accuses you of doing something that you didn't do. But since she's the daughter of a high party official, naturally the law enforcement personnel are going to support the high party official and try to come after her. But in a constitutional republic, everybody's rights would be treated equally, and they'd all be bound by the chains of the Constitution. There would be no favoritism shown, high party official or not. And in that particular situation, the person who was charged with committing a crime or even a civil offense would be afforded an opportunity to understand the nature and the cause of the action against them. And so this is language that the sovereign people who are here in my show tonight clearly understand, and you guys know right what I'm talking about. But notice an opportunity goes beyond just that. It goes beyond civil and criminal. It's part of being a free man upon the land, having an opportunity to, it's even in the Bible, I believe it's either Matthew or Mark, that talks about, there's a verse that talks about you're entitled to know who's levying the accusations against you. It's unfair to have a star chamber and have secret allegations. You're entitled to face your accusers. And that's something that's been passed down probably from ecclesiastical law into the original papal courts, and ultimately into the king's courts, and then the English common law, and now American common law. It's been passed along, I'm sure, in one form or another. Give me a bunch of ones so far if you guys understand. I'm trying to go through this relatively quick because I do have to probably take my son to judo tonight. But we're going to get into some stuff, and I'll stick around as long as I can, trying to get my wife to take them. But really quick, let's get into it. So the U.S. expanded more into international trade in the 1800s, and civil forfeiture was used to enforce customs and revenue laws. And one key case was the Palmyra of 1827, where the U.S. Supreme Court upheld the government's right to seize property involved in piracy without convicting the property owner. And this laid the foundation for civil asset forfeiture, and it distinguished it from criminal forfeiture, which required a conviction. So in this case, I mean, honestly, it's worse in a way. They're saying, well, since we're not putting you in jail, we're just taking away your ability to feed your family. It's no harm, no foul. We're just seizing your property. So we're good. And so I've always thought that was wrong. Now, I could understand if it's the law of the sea, if you're using it at sea and you're using it against the enemies of the country. Remember, we had a lot of raiders and privateering going on, the English and the French, and a lot of stuff going on, where Americans were pressed into service, who were just like sailors out there trying to, provide for their families, and they got pressed into service. So there's a lot of stuff like that was going on. And so it was a lot different. We didn't have quite the understanding, the John Locke understanding that we have today, right? We had an understanding of John Locke's vision, which is more like today's republic, but in the box of its time, right? In its time, recognized this as being normal. So obviously it would have been passed on because Americans considered themselves to be Englishmen. So the Prohibition era in the 1920s and 30s saw an expansion into civil asset forfeiture. And it was during the Prohibition era that civil asset forfeiture was revived and used to seize property, vehicles, and other types of things like, used in manufacturing alcohol. All that copper from those stills, man, they could have got rich just from that, right? And so basically that was done to sort of try and thwart the illegal alcohol trade, right? Even though it wasn't directly thwarting it, they were just trying to seize the money. If they pull you over, you're a bootlegger, right? They take your alcohol, they smash it, they take any cash from you, and they get to keep it, right? Can you imagine that any dirty cops back then, they would have been wealthy as could be, right? Right, Purple Pros? So basically what happened is they would be able to get the vehicles and the trucks and all that stuff. And typically that would go to the federal or the local governments, but typically it was the federal government seizing a lot of this stuff. And so anything that was contraband, if there was a way the government could seize the assets connected with it, they would do it. And that could enrich that agency, right? Like off the books cash to enrich the agency. And that became, with the rise of the administrative state, I mean, these bureaucrats, they love it when they can crush a small business owner or someone with some extra cash, right? Because most of these guys, they spend all their time in the campus culture. And if you're someone who's a hard worker, they don't like that, right? They want to make sure they take your cash because you didn't earn it, right? For whatever reason. So now it moves on down to the war on drugs. And this is where it got really crazy. Now, the war on drugs was around the 1970s to the 1980s. And the modern expansion of civil asset forfeiture started right around the 70s. And this particularly started with the passage of the Comprehensive Drug Abuse Prevention and Control Act of 1970. So with that, we had in 1984, the Comprehensive Crime Control Act. And I think that was under Reagan. So, like Chili DeCastro says, a lot of this stuff happens under Republicans, probably more often than not. that ultimately ends up helping the people in the administrative state that the Republicans you would think wouldn't be supporting, right? Because it helps expand the administrative state. And that's why so many people who watch my channel say that it's a two-tiered justice system, but it's a two-headed snake also, right? One level of justice for them, for the political class, one for us, but also they say that it's like a, I don't know what they call that, but that Greek thing that had like three heads, but it's a two-headed one. It's a snake with two heads. Help me figure it out. I'm just crazy. I can't figure it all out right now, guys. But let's get back into the law. All right. Because I'm good at the law part. I know that for sure. So basically with the war on drugs, remember, like, Nancy, well, Nance in the war on drugs, because I'm a child of the 80s. So I always would try to do Reagan imitations whenever we met for Easter. So, and they had the war against drugs, and it was just say no to drugs, right? So everybody that I knew in junior high loved doing loved me doing my Ronald Reagan, Nance. Anyways, there was this war on drugs, and there was this basically this law, the Comprehensive Crime Control Act, really expanded how the law and federal and state agencies could seize assets. And I don't know if you guys remember, but there was like the cocaine thing. There were accusations that the CIA was smuggling like cocaine into Los Angeles. And there was an LA cop who was saying that was actually going on. And he showed evidence of it. It was amazing, just amazing stuff that went on. But basically basically the court started interpreting this equitable sharing program, right? Where local law enforcement could use the power of the feds to seize your property, give it to them right away, like football it, right? They can parse it out, figure out a way to test the money to see if there's drugs on it, which pretty much all money has traces of drugs. And then, do all the paperwork and then give you some of it back to give it the appearance of legality. If you're a local sheriff station or whatever, you say, take all the money, give it to the feds give you back a check. They keep some for themselves. You get nothing as the victim, the law-abiding citizen who didn't have notice and opportunity that would have been afforded to you under the Constitution. And so that's why I'm circling back a little bit, because clearly property's being separated, but an exception has been carved out from English common law, which I believe is in contravention of American common law, because American common law gives us the right of notice and opportunity. And I believe that a court that would rule in any other way, I would argue that those judges are not abiding by the spirit of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. It would be absurd that any American judge or court would allow civil asset forfeiture, in my opinion. Even if you're not a lawyer, just being an American, in the sidebar, tell me misconstitutional rights or the with the grow Galees and Cops are 5150. Any of you guys, give me a reason why you think it should be fair under American common law. We have the right of notice and opportunity, the right of the Fourth Amendment to be secure in our persons and property, that a law enforcement officer or a politician or administrative agency could seize your property without notice and opportunity to be able to have a fair hearing before an impartial court, a common law court, not an administrative law court, a common law court. Tell me, any of you guys, somebody put it in the comments if you think that that is constitutional, because I don't think you have to be a lawyer to know that that's unconstitutional. It's absurd. Now, there was some criticism and reform in the 1990s and 2010s, but the problem is police unions and municipal corporations, aka cities, have so much power in the way they can raise capital and then donate money to political campaigns that politicians are very, very reluctant to do anything to change these laws, because it would hurt these, let's face it, cop watchers in particular have hurt the bottom line of a lot of municipal corporations and law enforcement agencies. They're staking out cops. They're preventing them from running the same types of road pirating operations that many people say that they have. And I know firsthand that it's affected their bottom line. You've got guys like, who's that guy out there up north, Press with Rancor? He stakes out the areas where they shake down out-of-towners, and that obviously is going to hurt the bottom line of the local law enforcement agencies. So, obviously that means that they've got to find other ways to raise capital. So if there's a way they can obviously find out if you've got large sums of cash somehow on your vehicle, And they may be able to do that. We're going to go into some technology that talks about that in a little bit. But they've also got to find a way to not only get their hands on it, but have a legal, or the appearance of legality, the color of law, right? The color of legality to launder that money and then get some of it back. And the way they do that is they'll turn it over to the federal government. And then they'll allow the federal government to work back with them. And I've shown you video earlier where the local law enforcement are colluding with, like, I think a federal attorney general over the phone to take this Marine's money that clearly was money that he had saved because he's a Marine and he doesn't trust the banking system. So he carried cash. I mean, come on, he sounds like every Marine I've ever met. And so, especially Marines who've been in combat, like he was, with PTSD. And by the way, I'll get to some of your comments in a second, guys. I just want to get through this material really fast because I've got a bunch of material I want to share with you tonight. So there was a lot of criticism, and then there were, a lot of stories of cases of innocent people losing their homes, cars, or money. It became more publicized thanks to, social media in particular. I mean, could you imagine if we allowed the government to control messaging like Gavin Newsom's doing in California, how terrible that would be? Or like they're doing in Brazil, that you wouldn't get this kind of information. The government wants to control the information while at the same time they're robbing us, in my humble opinion, with civil asset forfeiture laws. And so in response there, what Congress passed the Civil Asset Forfeiture Reform Act. But again, just like the Cruise Ship Safety Act, you've got push and pull from both sides. There's not enough teeth. It doesn't do enough. Now all it really does is including adding a little bit of protections for property owners and shifting some burdens of proof onto the government. But again, guys, this came from a maritime law situation, and it's sort of being used to backdoor deny people of their unalienable rights to notice an opportunity to be heard, which I believe is terrible. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree that that's just horrible. I think it's horrible. Now, there's been some recent developments in the 2010s. There was a continued push for reform because of guys like me, right? And many states did pass laws requiring a criminal conviction before property could be forfeited. And that reduced the incentive for law enforcement to rely on asset forfeiture as a revenue source. And that's the problem, is they really do rely on asset forfeiture as a huge revenue source. And these cops will get definitely promoted or bonused out, I guarantee you, for doing these kind of busts, because those are the more high IQ cops that are raising revenue and bringing it back home to Papa Bear, right? The chief, and helping the department out. They get more body armor. They get, those what do they call them? Those AMRACs, or those V-shaped hulls, right? So they go after the enemy in their armored vehicles. So the U.S. Supreme Court also did place some limits in Timms versus Indiana, which is a 2019 case. And basically it ruled that the Eighth Amendment's prohibition against excessive fines does apply to states, and limits of the value of assets that can be forfeited relative to the crime. But again, since this isn't a crime, there's just so many problems, guys, that we'll get into in some other episodes. But the current status is that civil asset forfeiture remains a controversial practice, that's for sure. And while reforms have been made at both state and federal levels, further changes are definitely necessary. And on the other hand, law enforcement agencies, they're going to keep defending the practice because it only helps them, right? They say it's a necessary tool for disrupting criminal enterprises. I beg to differ. I think it is. It sounds very despotic, like something communist China would do. And when I see states and feds doing that, I think they're trying to mimic the people that they worship over in communist China. I believe that our bureaucratic agencies are modeling themselves after these what do they call it? Community scoring system. They have a system now, guys, right? Where anyway, you guys know what I'm talking about. That they'll score, if you're a good citizen or a bad citizen, and they'll deny you the ability to buy things and whatnot. I mentioned it earlier. Now, it denies you due process. That's obviously a big problem with civil forfeiture laws. And also the burden of proof is a real problem. You've got to prove that it's your property and that it wasn't obtained through some kind of drug activity or illegal activity, right? And how do you prove that, right? Even if you have receipts, they'll just come up. They have so much money, they can fight you forever to make it to where you'll spend $100,000 to get $10,000 back. Another reason why they shoot it up federally. Let's face it, most podunk towns are not going to have a local attorney who even knows how to put a blue back on a pleading, like a federal pleading. I don't even know if they do bluebacks anymore. I think it's all digital now in federal court, right, guys? Alan Beck would know the answer to that one. But either way, it's a real problem. So, and there's such a major financial incentive for law enforcement, guys. That's the big problem. Such a major financial incentive for these guys to lie and, then get promoted, and they can say, oh, I didn't benefit directly, but they do benefit indirectly in a promotion, a bonus, or a better cruiser, better body armor, cooler looking gear, right? Maybe they could get from, the Taliban might sell them some stuff that Sleepy Joe left them, some of the high speed stuff, right? That all the SEAL units would love to get their hands on. Some of that stuff, the good stuff, right, guys? So what we're going to do right now is we're going to kind of discuss a little bit about what's going on, every day out there when you're out in the street, and then we'll get into some cool videos. So this is the first thing that's going to happen. When you get pulled over by a cop in California in particular, this is what's going to happen.
Where are your papers, Mav? Where are they? Oh, you don't have any papers?
But they'll fix all that with digital currency and stuff like that, to where they'll put a chip under your skin so they can track everything you do. But your social credit score will be affected if you say anything bad. Or ultimately, you might end up in the concentration camp like a really bad episode of Logan's Run. So be careful. So let's get into a little bit about, I had a really, really cool video. And look, it's about 13 minutes long, but it's a follow-up on the one that I shared with y'all back in the day about that Marine. So this is why I'm doing this one first. It's about 13 minutes. Bear with me. If you get too bored, I understand if you want to switch out. All right. But this is important to lay a foundation about how to deal with this stuff and how that may be tracking your cash.
Today, let's examine the case of Steven Lara, a former Marine who faced having all his savings confiscated during a traffic stop.
Be cool.
Through this incident, we'll learn about our rights, how to protect them, and the importance of cooperating with the police in complex situations.
Hello, Radleo.
This is Steven Lara, a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. On December 19, 2021, Steven Lara was driving cross-country with $87,000 to visit his daughters in California when he was pulled over by Nevada Highway Patrol Trooper Brown for allegedly following another vehicle too closely.
Hey, good morning, Trooper Brown, Nevada Highway Patrol. How are you today?
They may not realize they're committing, but we're seeing a big increase in crashes out here. Try and drive safely under the speed limit. I appreciate that. I just want to talk about your following distance, especially came up behind a red and blue tanker truck, a little bit too close behind him. I know it's sitting over there. I was waiting for you to trying to give you room to get over there.
So one of the things that I really hate about these civil asset forfeiture laws is you'll see that the local LEOs will use a criminal type of a statute or a vehicle code as the pretextual reason, right? A pretextual reason to pull these guys over, right? And they do it all the time on these large interstates because they know that there's a certain percentage of guys that they're going to pop who've got drugs or whatever. So they just kind of look for the profile. What is there a dude in the car? One guy, that kind of thing. They're looking at the gas tanks. So trust me, they've got a whole checklist, and that's how they do it, guys. So let's just keep watching and just sort of, now that you've got a little bit more of an education, at least most of you do, watch how the cop handles this, leading questions, trying to find a way to ultimately get his hands on some kizash.
Coming out of there and people are out fast. So.
Yeah, you gotta navigate that, but a little too close to him before you went around him, okay? As you passed those semi trucks and you came back down to make that lane change, and too close, you're less than a second in front of them when you enter that lane. If something were to happen to you, man, that semi truck would plow right through you. You got your driver's license with you? Awesome.
I appreciate you, by the way.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Do you have a registration card with you? Okay, yeah, that's fine. Any weapons in the vehicle? Oh, perfect.
Officer Brown told
Lara
that he
Jonah.
stopped him as part of a driver education campaign to reduce accidents
Driver
in the area.
education campaign.
The officer praised Lara for driving.
So in this case, in the interest of public safety, they figure out a way to pull this guy over, but the result is still going to be the same, right? Pretextual stop. Hey, we've got this safety campaign to protect you. Let us protect you. I'm from the government and I'm here to help. I think Ronald Reagan said those are like the scariest words you could ever hear. That's when you know there's impending doom, right?
safely, but expressed concern that Lara's car was too close to the vehicle in front, which could be dangerous. To ensure your safety and that of others, always maintain a proper distance from the vehicle ahead. Safe distancing allows you time to react
Right.
in emergencies and avoid unwanted
Right,
collisions.
Purple? That's right.
Remember, careful driving and maintaining safe distances protect not only you but also other road users.
You said your daughter lives up in Portola? Oh, over here, man. You a fighter?
Fighter? Yeah, well, I've got a lot of training. I'm a retired Marine.
So I just wanted to go over this with you guys again. So these are questions that, so this could be used later by the officers, right, in a criminal prosecution for excessive force against the officers, or to justify an arrest where they used force. That, well, he admitted that he's a UFC fighter, that he was a Marine, that he's, obviously he's got more training than your average bear. That represents a threat to us. So we had to take additional steps to protect ourselves from the threat. So, they're looking at his shirt, like, tap out, man, cool, yo, right on, so they're already, that's old school tap out, right? Remember those guys that like had their faces painted and all that, man, I almost forgot. I'll remember their names. I mean, they're really cool guys. But anyways, so they're already looking at him like this guy could be a potential threat, and we'll be able to use his statements against him now that he is a threat if we do have to beat the shit out of him or put a bullet in him. And he's just going along with it because he's a combat vet. He's a freaking Marine. He's looking at these guys like, they're probably just, no different than like military, right? But they're not. They're municipal cops or, state police, and their job, they're allowed to lie, according to the Supreme Court, and do anything they have to do to get a conviction. And they're trained in the civil asset forfeiture laws. And so that's something I wanted to share with you guys, so that's why you never, ever want to talk to the police, right? Like for me, if they want to pull me over and, like, where are you coming from? I'll just say, look, I'm a lawyer. I'm not going to participate in an investigation against myself. Here's my driver's license. Here's this, anything else. Let me call my attorney and we can answer these questions, over the phone or whatever that you want to ask me. And typically they'll be cool and they'll leave me alone. For you guys, you could do something similar, a variation. I want to help you. But first I need to have my lawyer present because I have an unalienable right to have my lawyer present before I answer any questions. And I also am going to be recording right now this interaction. I'm going to exercise my First Amendment right to record this. If you have additional questions for me, I would expect that you would allow me to contact my attorney and get him on the phone, and you go from there, guys. So that's another variation. Many people have their own ways. These are just ideas. I'm not giving you legal advice to do this. Your state may have some law that says you have to show your ID. And if they do, I think it's probably unconstitutional, but you still need to do the research and make sure you know what the heck you're doing, guys. Hey, thanks, Brett. I appreciate that. Woohoo! Ding, 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 ding. I just got gifted 5 memberships. So hopefully some young patriots who are watching the stream today will delve into some stuff on the back end and look what I've got to share with them. Yeah, Jeff, and it's not even like pleading the fifth, because you're not even saying, I think something that could be held against me, or what you're really saying is that, before I answer any questions, they could be twisted against me, and so I don't want my statements twisted against me. If I knew that it was going to be a correct interpretation and that it was properly recorded and there was context, I had a lawyer present, I would be more likely to be cool with that statement being used. But I need to have my lawyer present, and I'll let my lawyer make those decisions. And so that's a really important thing to do, is always rely on counsel. But anyways, you guys got an opportunity there to at least see. Thank you, Brett, by the way. Let me throw that up there. Woohoo! So Brett hooked me up with 5 memberships. And what that means is that there were 5 subscriptions purchased by Brett. And my subscriptions are super cheap. They're like, dirt cheap, guys. So you can buy them for your friends and family. And I share some cool stuff on the back end. And I'm not saying that it's cheap to Brett. Like, what I'm saying is it's affordable, guys. And like what Brett's doing is really valuable, because I try to make it affordable enough to where stuff I share on the back end, and I'll give you a discount on my book about how to become a lawyer with no law degree or undergrad. So cool stuff like that. So yeah, thanks, Brett. I appreciate that. By the way, make sure to double tap the screen, guys, because we're in vertical today. So double tapping helps me get likes, and make sure to always comment, not just in the side thing or the live stream, but comment in the comment section as well. So we can keep those comments going for people who don't have access to the live streams. And yeah, so let me just like finish out what's going on and why you shouldn't be talking to the police. So already he's given them like his paperwork, and, you know, even though he's showing them like documents and, you know, proof that this money and stuff is his. Look, that could be still construed in another way. Like, anyways, let's just watch what's going on.
He's a data chief initially, but he changed the MOS to cybersecurity chief. I got out 2 years ago.
Okay. All right.
My daughters, what do they do? Oh, 15 and 13 years old. So
Okay. Yeah.
you know, I'm just coming down here and just looking for a place down in Texas.
Give me a second, man. All right, stand right there.
Yeah, him and everybody else, right?
After a brief exchange regarding his driver's license and vehicle registration, the police asked Lara to step out of the car while they checked his documents. During this time, they discussed personal details unrelated to the traffic stop, but Lara cooperated and answered the police questions willingly. Cooperating with the police not only shows respect for the law, but also helps create a safe and positive environment for both parties. When responding to police questions, drivers should answer honestly and fully. Avoid arguments.
So like all this stuff, like, you know, obviously this is someone else's video. I don't agree you should be talking to him. So let me see if I can get over into like the other stuff. I mean, more power to him. That's his deal. But I want to get into the meat, because some of the stuff is really good in this video. Like, you know, I want to give him thumbs up.
You said you give me permission to search your vehicle.
I don't have anything to hide from you guys.
I appreciate that, man. Do me a favor to ask us, all right?
You can tell he's squared away. Freaking double dog.
I appreciate that.
Upon returning to the car, Officer Brown requested permission to search the vehicle, and Lara agreed, signing the consent form,
That's crazy.
stating he had nothing to hide from the police.
That's crazy.
In
that you would
reality,
ever do that. You
in
never
this
ever
situation,
consent to a
Lara
search.
had the right to refuse the police request to search his car,
You feel
as stipulated
pressured,
in the
right?
Fourth Amendment. Search without a warrant. If the police do not have a warrant, you can refuse a search. However, they can still search if they have probable cause to believe there is evidence of a crime in the car. This includes the smell of drugs, visible suspicious items, or the driver's suspicious behavior. And search with a warrant. If the police have a court-issued search warrant, you cannot refuse the search. This warrant allows the police to
Today.
But this is what I was trying to tell you guys is all this stuff, they're doing it without a warrant, and they're using the criminal statutes to obtain your property without criminally prosecuting you. So they separate you from your money and send you on your way broke. So we'll get into this right here.
large amounts of cash in the U.S. is not a crime, but police may suspect the legality of the money and conduct
Here's how it
further
works.
investigation. This often happens because cash can be linked to illegal activities such as drug trafficking, money laundering, or tax evasion.
That's right, Dr. K.
According to Nevada law NS
Absolutely.
450 3.3 property related to drug crimes, including cash, vehicles, and related tools, can be confiscated. The police have the right to seize property if there is reasonable suspicion it is connected to drug trafficking. The property owner can request a hearing to prove the property is not related to illegal activity. If the court determines the property is connected to drugs, it will be forfeited and can be used or auctioned by law enforcement.
That's
How
wild
much
to me.
cash is that?
About 100 grand.
All right. I'm a vet. He's a vet. You're a vet. I understand why you don't trust banks, especially in this day and age. What's that?
Discipline and lots of savings.
So with that being said, I give out a little bit. I know you got a bunch of receipts in there. See that it's not being used for nefarious activities, right? It's not money laundering. I appreciate that. Give me a few seconds. I'll make a couple phone calls, right? And stuff like that. As long
That's
as
right,
it's-
Cobb.
Which it is, right? Your money.
Cobb Star
and stuff like that. I believe
5150.
it, right? I gotta do my job, and my boss, as long as I can make it there. I think we'll get you there by 4 o'clock. No problem.
Absolutely.
At this point, the officer expressed concerns about the large amount of cash, and Lara explained it was for his daughters. After asking him for more information, Officer Brown decided to call his superior for advice.
What are your thoughts, dude?
I kind of lean more towards it's odd but
It's odd, but it's not packaged.
it's
like
not.
normal.
No,
I would like to put. Those are all shared out. I mean, keep them on them out.
yeah. I mean, everything lines as odd as it is. Everything lines up.
And stuff like that. And I'm gonna get out my scale on the way back.
You want me to set that up for deployment?
No, I can run it.
Okay.
So
In
they
the conversation, the officers expressed doubts about the money. Even though Lara had receipts and withdrawal
receipts
slips,
and everything. It's
they
just
decided
crazy,
to
right?
use a K9 unit to verify the money. Police used K9 units to detect suspected drug-related cash by having the dog sniff the money or vehicle. Trained dogs will signal when they detect drug traces. If the dog alerts to drugs, the police will document and temporarily seize the cash for further investigation.
You know, of course, all money has drugs pretty much on it. So these dogs are trained to smell money and drugs, and of course, he's going to find it. That's what he's trained to do. So
The
ridiculous.
police placed the money in a plastic bag and set it about 30 meters from the scene. The K9 unit was released and
They're not even
indicated the money.
recreating like how it would have been
This
found.
led the
It's just
police to
ridiculous what
suspect the
they're doing.
cash was related to drug trafficking. In reality, investigations show that 9 of cash in circulation in the U.S. contains some drug residue. Using this as a reason for confiscation
Almost
can
all
be
cash has
problematic,
drug residue on it.
especially when the police could see receipts and
It's like
withdrawal slips
unheard
in
of,
the
unless
car.
it's like freshly
To
out of the
seize
press. It's going to
The
have some
police
kind of
need
drug
probable
residue.
cause or evidence
Sure.
linking the money to illegal activity.
Yeah.
I know you're just doing your job. That money that I have in my jacket or something like that, I need to pay for my kids' bills out of Texas. So, I know you're just doing your job. You're probably stuck here today, riding for my children and stuff. So, like I said, I know you're just doing what you feel is best.
When the police informed Lara they were confiscating his money, he expressed concern and worry about being
feces, too.
stranded without
Really?
money for his daughters.
Well, that's gross.
However, he remained cooperative.
Check this out. Native says that also cash has feces on it. That's so gross. Did you guys know that it's got feces on it? That makes me want to throw up right now. I almost just threw up right now. Give me a bunch of ones if you just almost threw up right now.
And empathetic, stating that the police are doing what they need to do.
We believe right now that this is drug proceeds as opposed to currency.
What I'd like to do is, I'd like to get all of your information.
You will. You're going to get a receipt for all of this.
Your information.
Robbery.
What that means.
Okay.
Officer Brown explained they were seizing the money due to drug concerns, but Lara said he would prove the money was legally his savings. In similar situations, stay calm and cooperative, avoiding resistance or arguments on the spot.
Yeah, that's what they
Request
want.
a seizure receipt, stating the reason and amount confiscated for future evidence. Note the officer's name.
So they can make a ton of money if they get the arrest too, right? They can seize the car. They probably have a deal worked out with the tow yard, right? They get the jailer fees, whatever the matching state or funding is, what the jail goes. All kinds of deals, where these guys benefit off putting torture cuffs on you, taking you to the dungeon, and taking your property from you. And now the money, he'd be spending the money defending criminal charges. So there's no way he'd actually be able to afford someone to help him get his money back, because it's going to cost money, like big bucks, to hire a lawyer to try to get that money back once they seize it from you. Like once you give your stuff over to the law enforcement, whether it's a weapon, cash, anything, good luck getting it back. Good luck. It is like Raiders of the Lost Ark. Once the Lost Ark got put in that storage warehouse, good luck even finding it, guys. That's how they are. So let's just keep watching this bad chicken.
Names and details of the incident, such as time, location, and circumstances. Contact a lawyer specializing in asset forfeiture cases.
I think they
for
do,
advice
Doc K.
and
How
legal
could they
steps.
not? I mean, how could they
If
not be corrupt?
necessary, file a
It's too
lawsuit or
easy to be
complaint with the
corrupt right
lawyer's
now
help.
if you have an administrative state position. Too
This
easy.
is all I get here.
You get homeless people to vote for you and just
You're going to
drive
get
them
noticed
around
in the
in
mail
buses
as
and
well.
have them
I'm
sign
going to
you an
contact
act.
an attorney.
Absolutely,
Stay in town
right? So
forever.
you can contact the, my sergeant gave you that information, told you who to contact over there. You're also going to be.
Attorney told all that. The three deputies, they're the ones.
That's wild kinetic customs. That's
The
insane.
police provided information on how to contact the DA in Reno. Lara said he would contact his lawyer, and the police gave additional information about those involved.
Could you imagine? Say, I'm going to contact my lawyer, right? And then your lawyer says, "Well, how are you going to pay me?" He's going to say, "Well, when you get my money back." And the lawyer's going to go, "No, I got to feed my family. I'm not doing this pro bono." So you got to find a lawyer or a bunch of lawyers who are willing to put all their time together to be able to help you. It ain't easy, man. Now check this out. He's got this cool Marine shirt on. Oh, freaking raw. You got the EGA on there, Afghanistan, Kandahar. I mean, this dude was a legit, looks like a combat Marine, man. I mean, if I was those officers, I would be so ashamed of myself to take this man's money. Those guys like should be forever, like eternally damned for what they did to this hard charger right here. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. Semper Fi, do or die. Hurrah.
The DA did not comply with the state's legal deadline, which required them to charge Lara, file a civil lawsuit against his property, or return the money within 6 months of the seizure. After 6 months, Lara collaborated with the Institute for Justice to sue the Nevada Highway Patrol and demand the DA return his money. According to the Institute for Justice, the DA agreed to return Lara's money. Lara continues to sue the
DA.
Nevada Highway Patrol, arguing that his rights under the Nevada Constitution were violated. He seeks damages, claims the seizure was unjustified, and wants to prohibit the Nevada Highway Patrol from using equitable sharing practice. Lara's case has attracted public and media attention, highlighting issues related to unfair asset forfeiture
Crazy,
and
man.
calling for legal reforms to protect innocent citizens' rights. It also demonstrates the importance of cooperating with the police,
I don't
avoiding
think so.
escalation,
I don't
and
think it,
ensuring
I
safety
think
and
it, I
protecting.
think it demonstrates why you shouldn't cooperate with police. As soon as you start answering their questions and going along with them, that's how they end up with your property. The best thing for you to do is to not say anything other than invoke your rights and show them your identification. Unless there's some situation where, your life is in danger and under threat of arrest or physical harm, you have no choice, then yeah, you've got to make that decision. But I'm just telling you guys right now that you should not go ahead and say, yeah, go ahead and search my car. You should not say, oh yeah, no problem. Go ahead and take a look. I'll prove to you that I'm innocent. Pull out your bag of cash. Oh yeah, I forgot I have my $100,000 that I've been saving since I got blown up in Kandahar. Because I don't trust banks or the government because they lied to me about the war, and a lot of my friends got like wiped off the map. So yeah, I like to keep my cash with me, not in a bank. And the cops are like, "Oh yeah, right on, bro. By the way, that's probably like drug money, so we're gonna keep it. But don't worry about it. You can file like this thing, and you'll probably you have a chance to get your money back because we're gonna go." In the meantime, they're like making a phone call. Let's see if this video. I don't know if this guy covers the phone call, but there's literally a phone call in one of these things. Let's see if they show it. I don't think they're showing it right here in this one. So we're going to go on to the next video, but the bottom line is that you had local law enforcement call a federal agent. The federal agent, I think it was an attorney general or a DEA guy. They worked back and forth to seize this guy's cash. And just like what happened a few weeks ago, I believe it was a few weeks ago, a judge ordered a local police department, a sheriff's department, I believe, to pay $17,000 back to someone that they had taken money from under a civil asset forfeiture argument. And the judge wasn't buying it. The judge thinks it's pretextual bullcrap. And so what happened is they sent the money to the feds, and the court said, I'm going to find you in contempt of court. Your department has to have that money back here to the court in 3 days or whatever, or that's it, and threatened sanctions. I don't know what the judge was going to do. Anybody knows about that case, please put it in the comments. I'd like to know more about it. But there are some judges that are starting to wise up to it, that it's ridiculous. So that was just something that just happened recently. But let's just get into a little bit more. These are some little clips about what's been going on in the last like 6 months to a year with respect to civil asset forfeiture in other states, because remember, it's at the state and the federal level.
Are some police agencies more concerned about making money off the drugs than
Yes.
stopping them?
Well, at the center of this months-long investigation are laws that let officers pull you over looking for cash. And get this, they don't even have to charge you with a crime to keep your money.
A tractor trailer stopped for a traffic violation leads to a search and the discovery of large blocks containing almost $200,000 cash that officers keep on the suspicion that it's drug money. In fact, Interstate 40 has become a major profit center for Tennessee law enforcement, with officers stopping and often searching out-of-state vehicles. Is it okay that they...
It's okay.
It's because of a state law that lets them seize money like the cash shown in these police photos, simply based on the suspicion that it's linked to drug
That's it. They
trafficking.
take your money.
If an owner does not take legal action to get the money back, the agency gets to keep it all.
I mean, this is really
Even if you
highway
do take legal
shakedowns
action.
coming to the U.S.
The reason why I stopped you was you're coming outside your lane of travel. I don't know if you're getting sleepy or you're not drinking, are you?
So what was the reason for the stop?
I think he said he crossed the line.
Look for money.
Yet our camera had been tracking that same supervisor and captured the exact moment that he put on his brakes just as he was about to pass the Texas vehicle. As you can see, it's squarely between the lines.
Yeah.
For almost 2 minutes, the interdiction vehicle trails the SUV. And while the officer himself is all over the road,
That car wasn't weaving.
The tape, it was not.
So, we know that they look for vehicles that look like they might have insurance. They look at the driver, they profile them to see if they might have money, and they're targeting people like that. Now, we know that. I mean, there's no question about any of this stuff. It's not like being made up, guys. You can find all this stuff out. It's easily accessible information if you do your research.
Weaving, it did not cross the line. You're right.
He never weaved once, did he?
No, he stayed within his lane of traffic.
Driver, how you doing today? Get your license, please.
and we obtained other videos from that same 23rd Drug Task Force supervisor
How you doing, driver?
where he stops out-of-state drivers
Driver, how you doing today?
and never even tells them that they violated any traffic laws. Last year,
Right.
the Institute for Justice
knows what he's
issued
looking
this
for.
report, Policing for Profit, that gave Tennessee
So guys, what's going on is he already knows what he's looking for. So give me my overturned civil forfeiture, OTCF, OTCF, overturned civil forfeiture, overturned civil forfeiture. This is up there with overturned Terry versus Ohio. Give me a bunch of OTCFs in the sidebar, in the comments. This is crazy that we have these civil forfeiture laws. Check this out, how ridiculous this is. He's not even looking for a crime. He's looking for money. They're using a pretextual reason of a potential infraction or a traffic violation as an excuse to ask you questions, browbeat you into admitting you have large sums of cash and taking it from you.
see a D- for civil forfeiture laws that make it all possible.
Under civil forfeiture, you give law enforcement a direct and perverse incentive to go out and try to take as much property from citizens as possible.
It's a way to make money for your task force. Honestly.
Well, you know, when you say
Yeah,
make money, I
just
guess
really.
it is a way for us to continue to fund our operation.
What we're doing, we're taking advantage of how the laws are, to use the money to be able to put back to fight the drugs. So everything's
Fight
paid
the
through
drugs.
seizures and fines.
So if these officers out on the interstate don't come up with cash, then they might lose their jobs.
So it's a possibility, yes.
Out here on the interstate, interdiction officers have a choice. Conventional wisdom is that the drugs come in from Mexico on the eastbound side, but the money goes back on the west.
There you go.
We spotted both the 23rd and Dye staging time and time again with their backs to the drug side. In fact, a review of daily activity sheets kept by
They're
the
just looking for
23rd
cash.
discovered that when officers noted the location of their traffic stops, there were 10 times as many on the money side.
We want both sides of the road worked.
It looks like that they're not concerned about stopping the drugs, that they just
Hey, did you guys hear that? So look, like there's two sections of highway, right? One is where the drugs come in. You know, obviously if the cop sees those drugs, well, that's not going to help them. But once the drugs get sold and get laundered a little bit, or they get their cash and they bundle that up, it comes back up the other way. So that's where they're doing all their stops pretty much, is on the way where the cash comes up. And that's where they're trying to seize everything. And that's where most of the civil asset forfeitures occur. Crazy, right? Give me a bunch of ones if if you think that that's crazy, like I think it's crazy.
Just want with the money.
That's what it looks like.
Is that the case?
And that shouldn't be the case, but that's what it looks like.
It shows that the police are really focusing not on trying to get the drugs, not on trying to enforce the drug laws and stop
So
that
crazy.
flow throughout the
So
country.
obvious.
They're focused on getting the money.
Law enforcement authorities say their goal is to hit the drug traffickers in the pocketbook, which undoubtedly they have.
That's
But
ridiculous. They
some people have
want the
hired
money.
lawyers after their cash was taken, and sometimes after months and months of litigation, judges have ruled that the money really never had anything to do with drug dealing.
Of
at all.
course. All right, well, that's just one of them. I mean, these are just like nuggets, man. Like, I'm telling you, like, give me a bunch of ones if you think YouTube is better than watching TV. I don't even watch TV anymore. I just look at YouTube clips and old movies like World War II movies because I like that kind of stuff and just bypass all the garbage. But guys, check it out. Here's one. I've been watching reruns of this Man in the High Tower. Wow, what a trip. Check it out if you guys haven't seen it. Really amazing series. I'm still trying to make heads or tails. It's one of those things where you're probably going to have to watch it again, but I think it's called The Man in the High Tower. It's about if the Germans had won World War II with the Japanese, where they partition off part of America. Like I think the Germans got the East Coast and the Japanese got the West Coast, I think. And then in the middle is like, I think like Arizona, all that area is like neutral territory or no man's land. It's a trip. You guys got to check it out. Anyways, let's get back into this. I've got this other cool video. I think this is the one I wanted to show you guys. Give me 1 second.
Tonight, 2 investigators are exposing how law enforcement officers can confiscate your money.
Even when you have not committed a crime or been arrested. One man lost tens of thousands of dollars and reached out to CBS 2's Dave Savini.
Josh Gingrich buys and flips trucks. A recent buying trip to do that cost him this bag of cash, seized by a DEA, Drug Interdiction Task Force, at O'Hare Airport.
A little over $29,000.
But Gingrich was never arrested, and in fact, didn't break any laws.
No marijuana, no drugs.
He believes a TSA agent
Right on,
saw
Cops
him in
R
his backpack
5150.
and tipped off the DEA.
And then they take you down into
Pretty
the
much me
dingy
too.
basement room. No cameras, no nothing.
Gingrich says he was set up by the officers, who he says claimed to smell marijuana on a plastic bag filled with dirty laundry in his backpack. He said officers dumped the clothes, filled a bag like this with the cash, then brought it to the drug dog.
They can just do what they want.
He stopped trusting the officers and started recording them.
There is no prohibition on carrying a large amount of cash.
Benjamin Riddell with the ACLU says the DEA drug seizure program is flawed.
If the purpose of this is to disrupt illegal drug activity, we'd see some of these people be arrested.
Last March, the Justice Department Inspector General released this report saying from 2007 to 2016, the DEA seized $3.2 billion with 0 convictions tied to this money.
That's wild
It
to
should
me.
be against the law.
Gingrich also questions
a lot of
who's
cash.
being given this seizure power. In his case, there was a Chicago police officer working on the DEA drug interdiction team. That officer has at least 27 CPD complaints. He was cleared on all but one.
Yeah, because they're just trying to, I guarantee you these cops are pocketing some of this cash, man. Guaranteed.
6 of the 27 were for illegal searches. He's also been sued, resulting in 2 settlements involving bad searches and a bad drug arrest. This happened to him in February. Gingrich recently hired attorney Michael Schmiggy to get his money back.
It's not a quick and easy process. It's not like traffic court. It can drag on for years.
Schmiggy says drug dogs often hit on money.
Most United States currency has trace amounts of narcotics on it.
Yeah, that's what
Another
I keep telling
twist,
everybody.
Gingrich lives in California, where
Stupid.
marijuana is legal.
You're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah,
If
but see, that's
Gingrich fails to get his money back, it will be divided up between the feds and local police on the
Yeah.
task force. The DEA says multiple facts, circumstances, statements, and other factors go into the decision to seize an asset.
no, it's bullshit. It's a violation of this guy's right of due process. And what they're doing is they're using these ancient like maritime law rules, and they're trying to somehow make them sound okay under the American common law system, that it should be tempered by the Bill of Rights. There should be a notice and opportunity as there is with anything else. Shouldn't just be able to seize someone's assets like this. And they're literally targeting people now because there's a financial incentive in it for these local administrative agencies and these police departments. It's absolutely disgusting. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree with me that it's absolutely disgusting.
And there is a process for contesting a seizure. Robin Erica, he doesn't even have a court date yet.
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
well, this guy doesn't have a court date, and there's a lot of criticism from him and so many others, but is there going to be any change?
No.
Not right now. There's just
No,
a lot of
nothing.
criticism of this process, and there needs to be some oversight, some more
joke.
oversight.
And it's good that you shine a light on this because people don't know that they can just take your money and you may never get it back.
$3 billion.
This is super important to me, because like one of you guys could be like my uncle or my aunt or somebody in my family, like I couldn't even imagine getting a phone call from somebody about this happening, and I really want it to end. It's totally unfair. Like, I think we should leave this world in a better place where police shouldn't be able to just come and take your crap and not even, like just say, oh, well, we think there were drugs or whatever, and just take it from you. It's crazy, absolutely insane. And by forming our parallel systems, guys, like I said, we can also become a powerful block, to where we could literally start pushing for legislation and to have things rolled back. And to bring things back to a constitutional republic or more of that, right? Where there's less government and more freedom for all of us and our families. We could do that together. And I encourage all of you again, I will create the business sidebar for my website, michaeleline.com. I'm going to put a section where I'll add your businesses, depending on the kind of business you have. Obviously, that if it's a patriotic business, you're outside the BlackRock system and you want to support parallel systems where we support each other. You have a homeschooling company, you have a auto supply place, whatever it is, you make custom cards, whatever, send me your stuff. I'll list you as a patriotic business, a friendly business. And I'm going to encourage all of you guys with websites to do the same thing, because parallel systems will enable us to overturn some of these civil asset forfeiture laws. The only strength we have is in a visible number. And clearly, if you guys keep sharing these videos and joining me on my channel and typing in OC, overturn OTCV, OTC, overturn civil forfeiture, OCT, OCT, whatever it is, put it in the sidebar, for crying out loud, guys. Anyways, that's what we have to do. We have to overturn these civil asset forfeiture laws, and we have to do it because people like that Marine and stuff, a few years ago, he would have never gotten any help, but there were some nonprofits that got together and helped him, but most people don't have that. So let's see what else I have that I can show you here. And then we're going to also get into some of the tools that I think they may be using to see if you have cash on board your cars. Actual reason to search you or give them the reasonable, articulable suspicion to find additional evidence of probable cause in an investigation. And this is just another example of how they use it, guys. That's why Chilita Castro really wants to overturn Terry versus Ohio. But I think in addition to that, we need to take away the incentives, right? There are big time incentives, especially for local law enforcement agencies to pull over out-of-towners and see if they can seize their assets, because they know that most people they're from out of town. They can't afford, a lawyer. It's probably their life savings, right? They're probably trying to retire or get out of the state. They know this. These cops know this. That's what's so insidious, that they'll take money from people. Yeah, that's true. Like, I think in Texas, I think they allow recreational use in some parts, or medicinal use, at least in some parts of Texas. But I think like resin balls, they could say it could be hash, right? And if it's hash, then it's like a federal schedule. I think that's how they do it. But the idea is they just, in Texas, like, man, that's a whole different animal depending on where you're at. Like marijuana could be like the devil incarnate, right? I mean, it could be a big deal. To share this one with you guys. Hold on a minute. So teachable moment here. So you have the federal government, flooding the country, opening the borders essentially to millions and millions of military age males just flooding across our borders. And then law enforcement seizes the cash and the assets of locals, people who have nice cars, pull them over, take their cash and say that we think this is drug money. And then they say, this is justifiable because this is fighting the cartels. I mean, you opened the door to all these coyotes bringing these people up here. And now you're over here saying that you need to seize my assets to fight the cartels that you invited essentially to do business on our southern border. The cartels are making billions of dollars because you can't get across the border from Mexico over to here unless you pay one of those coyotes off, right, guys? Give me a bunch of ones if you guys know what I'm talking about. So it's just mealy mouth nonsense. They're trying to say that we need to be able to seize the property of law-abiding citizens to fight drug cartels that we're essentially allowing to do business de facto in our country. And then we'll come after you to get your money, your life savings, because we want to fight those same cartels. The circular crazy logic is just completely beyond me. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree with me that that's insane. Give me a bunch of twos if you agree with this local county sheriff down here, Sheriff Harold Evenson of Rockwell County. Sheriff Harold Evenson. It bothers me, and I think it should bother you guys too, is why is this even political? Why is this a left versus right thing? I mean, this is just totally un-American that you can have your cash seized without notice and opportunity, a proper hearing, just have your money taken. That is just wild to me. And you can see just based upon the protocols and procedures utilized in these stops and how they're monitoring only the traffic that they believe statistically is going to have cash and not drugs, right? We know they're doing that. So since they're doing that, I mean, we know that it's being used, at least to a degree, pretextually. They're using criminal laws as pretextual reasons to get the civil forfeiture. So they're, in my opinion, they're abusing process. They're abusing legal process because they're pulling someone over for pretextual reasons and then trying to get people to give up their rights, conducting an investigation, conducting more of an investigation, and then they get to the level where they are searching your vehicle and taking your money and you never see it again. I mean, it's very successful for these people. They rarely have to. No, it's ridiculous. It's insane. And putting this whole like the flag of glory and wrapping patriotism around being able to seize someone's property without proper notice and opportunity is detestable. And certainly if there is drug money that's coming in illegally through cartels, well, then the people that are arrested with the large sums of money, they can go to court and have a hearing about it, right? Quickly, just like you would in any other criminal proceeding. But to accuse someone's money or their assets of a de facto crime and to separate the person who holds the money or the property is absurd. To use that lower standard to detach you from your money. Give me a bunch of ones if you guys agree. I'll go ahead and keep playing this badge, but they're able to do this stuff. Now, here's another one I wanted to share with you guys. I'm sharing like little examples of 5-minute clips so you can see that I'm not just making stuff up, right? I'm showing you real life examples and they're pretty recent. This is one where Mint Hill police seized like $69K and they cited civil asset forfeiture laws. And let's check this one out.
Right now at 6, a Where's the Money investigation into what some call policing for profit. Law enforcement agencies in North Carolina have received nearly $300 million over the last 2 decades by partnering with the feds to seize people's money. But they regularly do so without ever charging those people with any crimes. Thanks so much for joining us for the news at 6. I'm Vanessa Rufus. Last night at 11, you'll remember our Nate Morbido told us about a sexual abuse case in Mint Hill where the feds and the town's police quietly kept $69,000 in seized cash. The victim, who was court ordered to get that money, hasn't seen a dime. Now, this practice of keeping seized money has been considered controversial for years, but new bipartisan legislation moving through Congress would end it. And the bill's sponsor says the Mint Hill case proves why the current law needs to change. We sat down with our Nate Morbido to talk about it tonight.
The legislation would end the Equitable sharing program, which Mint Hill police used to quietly collect tens of thousands of dollars from a sex abuser 3 years before his criminal case even went to court. Money his victim cannot now receive as compensation for her pain and suffering.
It just feels like 3 steps back.
This 17-year-old's family says a Mint Hill police officer assured them
We were always under the impression that it was always there.
The $69,000 in suspected drug money investigators found inside her abuser's home would still be available when they were ready to sue him.
If she was led to believe that, I get it. I get she's frustrated.
They only recently learned the money was long gone by the time they filed their civil lawsuit.
This is completely unjust.
Without them knowing, the police department partnered with a federal agency.
Well, so, if they're saying it was drug money, right? So I kind of understand the argument of law enforcement. And since police are encouraged to lie to people, right? They could have just lied to her. I'm sure give me a bunch of ones if you think they knew the whole time she was never going to see that money. Let's get into it.
Through the Equitable sharing program, and received $45,000 of the cash to buy generators. The federal government took the rest of the money, and it's all legal for now.
Just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should do it.
When you hear a case like this, how does it make you feel?
Well, it makes me feel more resolved to get this legislation passed.
Michigan Congressman Tim Walberg is leading a bipartisan effort to reform civil asset forfeiture, so police are forced to always act in the public's best interest.
At least the thought can come in people's minds. They changed their approach and they rushed it more quickly in order to get that $69,000.
The lawmaker says his FAIR Act would still allow police to work with federal agencies for justified seizures, but would prevent local police departments from collecting any of the assets, eliminating the incentive. It would also shift the burden away from property owners.
They'd have the
Hey, that's one way to deal with it. Like, take away the incentive of these municipal corporations, police departments, for me being able to use that money to buy better cars and all that other crap that they usually use, right? The accoutrements of success, right? The better police station with the cool skylights and all the stuff you see out there right now, the largesse that we see with the administrative state, right? All that stuff.
Opportunity for representation in the court of law.
And create a higher standard of proof to protect the people whose money or property investigators seized.
They would not be forced to prove themselves innocent, but rather the state, the law enforcement would have to prove them guilty.
Civil forfeiture is an absolute outrage. It's inherently abusive.
Institute for Justice senior attorney Dan Elbin says it's long past time Congress acts to protect people's constitutional rights, especially since so many states, including North Carolina, have created stringent asset forfeiture laws.
The Equitable Sharing Program simply allows local and state law enforcement officials to evade state law.
He cites his own group's research showing when police seize money under the premise they're disrupting criminal activity, forfeiture proceeds don't help them solve more crimes or reduce drug use. Is equitable sharing fair?
I believe equitable sharing is fair.
Mid Hill Police Department attorney Scott McLachie supports the program as it stands and stands behind the decisions in this case.
I am at peace that we followed the law.
Annual reports show
we have investigated ourselves. We've determined we haven't done anything wrong, and we're proud of that record.
Hill police routinely partner with the feds, receiving nearly $900,000 in equitable sharing funds since 2018.
If Congress changes the law, then we will certainly respect the law, whatever that is.
It's just hard to move on.
The victim's mother believes the $69,000 police seized should go to her daughter.
No amount of money will ever make my daughter whole.
She even secured a state judge's order saying the teen has a right to stake her claim. But Min Hill maintains that court order has no authority, all because the money went through the federal equitable sharing program 3 years prior. Congressman Walberg told me he expects the House to vote on his bill in the coming weeks, likely later this month. The House Judiciary Committee unanimously approved the legislation back in June. In Min Hill, Nate Morabito, WCNC Charlotte.
And Nate and our Where's the Money team work hard to hold our government and law enforcement accountable. Your tax dollars pay for these agencies. So part of our job is making sure that they are doing theirs and doing right by the community. So with that said, we want to put this call to action out there. If you have something our team should investigate,
call me and I'll talk about it. Don't listen to her. Call Mike Eline. He's going to handle it for you. Here's another cool one I got for you guys. Hold on.
Imagine if police seize thousands of dollars from you without ever charging you with a crime.
And instead of proving your guilt, authorities expect you to somehow prove your innocence in order to keep your own property.
That's basically what it is in a
what happened
nutshell.
to Jerry Johnson. En route to Arizona to buy a used semi-truck for his growing small business, police stopped Jerry at the Phoenix airport and seized almost $40,000 from him.
Another example.
I thought you had to do something illegal for him to seize your money.
Yep.
Jerry hired a lawyer, but a judge ruled that he didn't even have standing to fight for his money in court.
No
That's when
standing.
IJ got involved and appealed. Eventually, a higher court ruled
Insane.
that nobody has to prove their own innocence just to dispute a forfeiture. After 31 grueling months
Insane.
with
California and
during a
Texas, Doc
pandemic,
K.
Jerry finally got his money back with interest.
Licensed in California and
Jerry's
Texas.
case perfectly illustrates the injustice of civil forfeiture. Even if you win, it may take years to get your savings back.
Years.
Imagine if police seized thousands of dollars from you without ever charging you with a crime. And instead of proving your guilt, authorities expect you to somehow prove your innocence in order to keep your own property.
Insane guy.
That's exactly what happened to Jerry Johnson.
Yep.
En route to Arizona to buy a used semi-truck for his growing small business, police stopped Jerry at the Phoenix airport and seized almost $40,000.
You do it at airports
I
all the
thought
time.
You had to do something illegal for
All
him
the
to seize
time.
your money.
Jerry hired a lawyer, but a judge ruled that he didn't even have standing to fight for his money in court. That's when IJ got involved and appealed. Eventually,
IJ
a
is
higher
one of the
court
few
ruled
people
that
out there. I want you
nobody
to
has
watch
prove
this.
their own innocence just to dispute a forfeiture. After 31 grueling months without his money, during a pandemic, Jerry finally got his money back with interest.
Hell yeah.
Jerry's case perfectly illustrates the injustice of civil forfeiture. Even if you win, it may take years to get your
Years.
savings back.
You lose everything.
Imagine if police seized thousands of dollars from you without ever charging you with a crime. And instead of proving your guilt, authorities expect you to somehow prove your innocence.
That's all it is.
Imagine if police seized thousands of dollars.
All right, so you got it. That was the whole
Imagine
video.
if police seized.
Boom. And then we got the next one. And then we're going to get into how is it, how do they know who to target? We're going to get into that.
Do the TSA and the DEA have the right to take your money? If you plan on bringing a lot of cash with you next time you hop on a plane, watch out.
Yeah, a new federal lawsuit alleges those agencies are confiscating it without any reason to believe a crime has been committed. Fox 46
They're just
investigator
looking
Matt
for
Grant
cash,
is live
guys.
outside the Charlotte Douglas International Airport. Matt, one of
Brother in
those
full
seizures
effect
took
right
place
here.
right there.
Color of law.
Yeah, Morgan, this 112-page class action lawsuit accuses the DEA and the TSA of illegally seizing money from air travelers, including here at Charlotte Douglas International, simply because they were carrying too much cash.
What's up, Galveston Island Transparency? Woohoo!
We're trying to shut this down because the government should not be treating travelers like ATMs.
A federal class action lawsuit accuses the TSA and DEA of seizing money from air travelers without any indication of criminal activity, simply because they're traveling with a large amount of cash.
It's not illegal to have cash on you, so how can these agencies just take your money?
You're right. It's absolutely illegal
Because
to
they
travel
can.
with any amount of money domestically. But unfortunately, TSA and DEA have policies that treat what they consider to be large amounts of money as presumptively suspicious and indicative of criminal activity.
Dan Albin is a senior attorney with the Institute for Justice, a nonprofit civil liberties law firm suing on behalf of thousands of passengers.
If you travel through an airport with more than $5,000 or $10,000 and it's detected when you go through TSA security screening,
one way.
They will stop you, they will detain you, they will interrogate you, and more likely than not, they will seize your cash.
It happened to Stacy Jones. She and her husband traveled to Wilmington last year. According to the lawsuit, they sold their 2016 Maserati for $28,000 cash, money
less than
authorities
that, trust me.
confiscated at the airport.
I mean, we didn't do anything wrong. There was no evidence of wrongdoing. We were searched. The dogs sniffed all of our
I'm a
property.
former
I was even
Maserati
followed
owner.
into the
Poop.
restroom by a female officer.
The lawsuit says a similar incident happened at Charlotte Douglas in 2015 when TSA seized $55,000 in cash from the owner of a transportation company. The lawsuit says the man planned to use the money to buy a tour bus.
It's absolutely absurd and it's unconstitutional.
Amen. I
The
think so
DEA
too.
says it cannot comment even generally about these policies, citing the ongoing litigation. I also reached out to the TSA, but did not hear back.
How frustrating for those people. Matt, where is the money now and what does the DEA do with it?
Well, 4 of the named plaintiffs in the lawsuit did eventually get their money back, one after almost a year and after
Can you imagine
filing
a
of this
year
lawsuit. But the Institute for
having
Justice
to
says
sue?
that a lot of the times there's no criminal charges ever filed in these cases and that the money that's seized goes into a federal forfeiture fund, which can be used for any law enforcement
Terrible,
purposes.
guys.
Live at Charlotte Douglas International, Matt Grant, Fox 46.
So you kind of get the idea. I mean, it's pretty serious, guys. I mean, they just take your stuff. So I found this video. Let me see if I can open this bad chicken up really quick. It's just a couple of minutes. It's talking about different police technology that can recognize weapons. And I wanted to throw some ideas out there as to how, like, maybe these guys are, maybe they're using some kind of a device to where they can tell it on the side of the road, right? Where they can tell, just like they can at the airport, where they're maybe those bands around your cash. Maybe there's a way. I don't know. But anyways, here's some of the technology. We're going to go into some of the technology that they do have.
Who encounters someone on the street has a new tool that can tell them instantly whether that person is carrying a concealed weapon. Thanks to a new technology, software will alert the officer about the weapon. Fox 5's Morse Diggs has been looking into an advancement that police say can help keep them and you safe.
We have told you and we've showed you the different technology tools law enforcement tries to use to keep themselves safe and you safe. Now there's an enhancement that's being used in London and New York. Will soon be available right here in Atlanta.
What's up, Greg B?
Hollywood uses weapons for make-believe. There is technology depicted in an example by a blue highlighter that could make a real weapon visible, so to speak, for law enforcement purposes.
If an officer is having our system connected to their work app, they all have cell phones usually. They could be walking the beat. They might see somebody that's wanted. The system might see someone holding a gun that the human eye can't see. And it can get a real-time alert detection and send you the location of that person.
Artificial intelligence software, how does it work?
So throughout the city, where there's high rises, buildings, city cameras are everywhere. So what we created is a software that uses AI, and we integrate into their existing camera systems.
And the software can detect patterns or certain behaviors, loitering, for example. But can the technology result in a controversial profiling by law enforcement?
We use faceless recognition. So, for example, we have a lot of car break-ins. We have a lot of muggings inside these high-rises with the luxury condo buildings. We might not see the person's face because everybody's wearing face masks now due to COVID-19, but we can remember that that person had a red sweatshirt on, and we could track that person. So we want to make it as easy as possible, not just for law enforcement, but also for businesses that have patrols on site, that have concierge on site, that want to get real-time alerts around what's going on.
Now, aside from the security application, there's another reason why the managers at City Hall might be interested in the AI application. And I'm going to show you. It's road conditions. This software can detect where there are potholes. From Northeast Atlanta, I'm Morse Diggs, Fox 5 News.
Wow, that is just unbelievable. And I mean, can you guys believe this stuff?
In the years-long effort to reform the state civil asset forfeiture process. So yesterday, a reform bill in the House passed with unanimous support. The Senate also passed its own version. This deals with law enforcement's ability to take property that they believe to have obtained through illegal means before someone is charged or convicted with a crime. 12 News reporter Sean Logging taking a look at why there's a push for this reform and the changes it would make. Sean?
Mike, these bills are hefty and pretty involved, and it would go a long way to making reform to the practice of civil asset forfeiture, which has faced scrutiny. Speaking with one of the lawmakers who introduced this bill in the House, he tells me it's about finding a balance between individual property rights and the rights of law enforcement.
I don't even see how that should even be part of the rights of law enforcement. I mean, that's crazy. It's property. And if it's going to be separated from its owner, I mean, one of the facets of liberty is property, right? Life, liberty, property. That was John Locke. I mean, that's what the Bill of Rights is all about. Like relying on an old English common law, maritime law statute or whatever from England during like the time of pirates shouldn't give law enforcement the ability to separate you from your cash. Rights of law enforcement doesn't make any sense to me. I don't get it. I think that the whole body of law is horrible. And I think that if you were a true jurist and you applied the Bill of Rights as you should to civil asset forfeiture laws, you would instantly find these repugnant, and they would be null and void according to the Constitution. Give me a bunch of ones if you guys agree with me, even if you're not trained lawyers.
About 8 years of trying to find compromise on this legislation.
The Kansas House and Senate are moving bills forward with civil asset forfeiture reform. Representative Stephen Owens introduced the bill in the House.
It's unfortunate that we have seen some agencies, and by all means,
Should be
not the
fighting this
majority, but
stuff.
some
You
agencies,
know, all of us should be
that
like
there's documented
writing our
proof of taking
legislatures and
advantage of
fighting
this
this.
process. And so by raising these standards on all of these different areas, it increases that burden of proof and further protects the individual.
The House and Senate bills share a lot of similarities, although some additional provisions exist in the Senate version.
They
They're
always
based on
get diluted.
recommendations following a 2023 study by the Kansas Judicial Council. These are changes groups like the Kansas Justice Institute want to see.
The deck is really kind of stacked in favor of the government and against
Yep.
Kansans. It's very complex.
Yep.
It's hard.
Always.
It takes a long time.
It'll be
Some of the
worse.
proposed changes include removing small-level
It'll
drug
be
possession
worse
offenses from those
with the
allowing
new
for
law. The new
forfeiture.
law will make
Law
it worse.
enforcement would
Mark
also
my
have
words,
14
it'll be
days instead
harder
of
to get your
45
money.
to request forfeiture.
One of the best features of the forfeiture reforms is the changing of the level of proof that the government's going to have to meet in order
don't
to
care.
take someone's property.
Once they have your money,
Before,
it
was
doesn't
a
matter.
very low standard of proof.
The bills would also make changes
Doesn't
to
matter.
court
Let's take your
processing,
cash anyways. I don't
hold on
care.
civil cases to
Don't
get
let 'em
property
take your
back if it's a
cash.
criminal case proceeding.
Don't let
If
them
someone gets
separate
at
you
least
from your
half
cash.
of their property
Have a
back,
proper
the
hearing.
law
Do it
enforcement
right.
agency would be responsible for the court and legal costs. That is an area where law enforcement groups have pushed back on the bill.
Many of them even said we're 99% in support of this bill. That is truly significant in
Yeah.
exactly how our system should work.
The Senate version of this bill also has the ability to request a jury trial when trying to get your property back.
I mean, that's
Now,
just-
the next step is for the House and Senate to work out
That's
the
just
differences
crazy that they
between
don't
the
already
respective-
have that right. I mean, we already have that right. That's what I'm trying to tell you guys. It's like they're putting a Band-Aid over a cancer. This civil asset forfeiture laws should be overturned by the courts. They should be found inherently repugnant to the Constitution. Politicians shouldn't be able to make laws that allow people to be separated from their property without due process. This is insane. This is like really a big deal for me. Like, I'm a real activist when it comes to this, guys. I want you to learn as much as you can about this. And I want you to join me in my battle against civil asset forfeiture laws, because it makes me sick to my stomach. It absolutely is repugnant to everything that I, joined to serve in the Marines for, that taking an oath to uphold the Constitution. That property is what it's all about, guys. They shouldn't just be able to come and take your stuff. That's crazy. Now, my theory is I've been told this by other people who are kind of more in the know than me, that there is certain technology that does allow law enforcement to recognize if you're carrying sums of money at a distance. Now, I don't see that covered in any of this stuff, but I'm just going to show you like how crazy the technology has gotten to where they can figure out ways, if they can see you got something, they can come up with a pretextual reason to stop you so they can get that search. And how our Fourth Amendment rights are just being eviscerated by these technologies in contravention of the spirit of the Fourth Amendment. And that's why it's important for you to join me on my channel as much as possible, so we can show unity against all these terrible laws that are harming our families and our offspring and our progeny. Let's watch this and take a look at the technology in the evolution.
Well, new at 6 tonight, a police officer who encounters someone on the street has a new tool that can tell them instantly whether that person is carrying a concealed weapon.
So we saw
Thanks
that
to
one.
a new
Ta-da. Now here's another one. So this is an article that I found on Quora, because I couldn't find any like really cool videos to share with you guys. But let me just try to blow it up a little bit. So basically, they have radar devices that can see through walls through a network of microphones that report shootings. And this is called the Ranger R. So it can like tell you, I guess, where the shots come from. It looks like a stud finder, but it can pinpoint people. It uses radio waves to see through walls. It can see through a structure. It can even detect breathing from a human. It can detect the location of a human up to 50 feet away, but it doesn't provide an image of what's inside. So that's pretty interesting. Hopefully you guys can see this. Can you guys like me to blow it up some more for you? This is pretty cool. I'm trying to blow it up a little more. You guys hopefully you can see it better now. All right. So this is called the Range R, and this thing it's only $6,000. So if you think your wife's cheating on you and you're rich, this is a way to catch her, I guess. Go to all the hotels and you can pick up on her breathing and find her. Yeah, privacy advocates don't like it because it helps people search without a warrant. And a federal appeals court brought the issue up. A deputy marshal who had a warrant, I guess, used one of these things. And because he suspected someone was in there. But the other guy, I guess the defense tried to get the case thrown out because a radar was used. I guess they found him. And the charges were upheld. So government's warrantless use of such a tool was, it's a powerful tool. And it, I guess it raises questions, but I guess that's wild to me. Now they have this other thing, the Stingray. It masquerades as a cell phone tower. I think you guys have heard of this before, some of you guys. And it picks up on all this forces all the nearby cell phones to connect to it. And then law enforcement can receive everything through the antenna, and it's called the Stingray. So they can literally just tap into your phone, guys. And it's about $400,000 to them. I've seen some busts that they've made with Stingray. Put it in the comments if you guys have any links. Drop me a link if you want me to cover one of these Stingray videos. Really, really interesting technology. I think it's a total violation of our Fourth Amendment rights. Yeah, so the Stingray, civil rights people have been talking about it. They went after the San Diego police for using it. But, courts uphold this kind of stuff, guys. Body cameras, we know that's happening. We know that they love using theirs, but they don't like it when we use ours. I wonder why that is. They also have facial recognition software. Now, I disagree. I think that this stuff is a total violation of your unalienable rights. I think they need to be requesting a search warrant for this kind of biometric stuff. Give me a bunch of ones if you guys agree. Anybody got any comments about that? Jeff says because the courts are corrupt. Yeah, well, a lot of people say that, bro. Yeah, and the police are using these civil asset forfeiture laws, Dave Ellis, to raise enormous amounts of money, and that can get them all this cool stuff, all this high-tech gear, so they could get more cool stuff, right? They can seize more of your assets and destroy more people's lives, right? Because they don't care, right? Because they're doing justice in their eyes. Now, these license plate readers, I hate these too. They store your plates and they can GPS locate where you've been, and that enables cops to find out where you've been and where you were. It's just something out of a dystopian Orwellian thing. And as soon as you get somebody in power who doesn't believe in the First Amendment or the Fourth Amendment, like some despot who thinks that the government should have the right to censor or regulate speech, if you get somebody like that into power, all the First Amendment is going to go out the window, and they'll already have the technology in place to completely take you down, your family, your bank accounts, everything. Very dangerous technologies, guys. Very dangerous for the government to have this kind of power. Our founding fathers would have never did allow it. This is not allowed under the Constitution, guys. You don't have to be a judge to understand that. Now, drones. Drones are unmanned aerial vehicles. They come in many sizes, and they can be self-guided. Some of them can be up to like 65 feet for civilian guys like us, right? Like they can get pretty big. But police departments are using them now, and they've been using helicopters for years. So, I don't see it being a real big deal. The problem is when they come within the curtilage and they start, really spying on you. I think that we all need, as citizens, to be aware that we're probably being spied on, and we need to set up our homes in such a way that, we put the Faraday bag or the Faraday cage. We do our rooms in such a way that they can deflect all of these technologies, right? So you can have your freedom still. I mean, just because they have the technology doesn't mean that you don't have the counter technology, and probably can even get a tax write-off for some of this stuff because it's probably going to help insulate your house. Who knows? But I'm just telling you, there's ways you can go with that, Brett Ray and Jeff, and what's the matter you? And and Just Willie. Yeah, so the drones are a big one, and then we have the cell phone tower dumps. Let's get back over there, guys. So you have the cell phone tower dumps too, and that's when a law enforcement agency requests information from the cell phone to a tower during a given period, and that's one way they can track people. And I think that's how they found the guy who went fishing with his wife and or just came back by himself. Trying to remember his name, but Peterson. Remember the Peterson case? I think they actually were able to locate him through cell phone tower data on the night of her disappearance, I believe. Now they also have what's called a shot spotter, and that's just to detect, where shots came from. That's kind of cool. Just come to my house. That's probably where they came from. Anyway, so that's some of the technology I found out about on Quora. And then hopefully you guys are liking this so far. I mean, I thought this was really interesting stuff. Now we've got this other stuff that they're using. Here's the 10 secret tricks every police officer uses. I wanted to share this with you as part of my government accountability operations, so you guys can kind of see what's going on out there.
Have you ever been pulled over for speeding? Have you ever been interrogated by a cop? Well, cops usually follow some strict protocols, and they use secrets that they don't want you to know about. So, here are the 10 secret tricks every police officer uses. Let's dive right into it, shall we? Number 10, the rainbow of police sirens. Have you ever noticed that not all police sirens are the same? That's done on purpose, and police officers use different sirens for different occasions. If you listen closely, then you might just understand what type of emergency the officers are dealing with. The first sound is a yelp. This includes those low, high sounds that you see when the cops are chasing after a bad guy.
Yeah.
Just like all the other sirens, this one is accompanied by rapidly flashing emergency lights. The yelp is most commonly used in urban areas, informing people to move out of the way, and the criminal to pull over. The second most recognizable sound is the wail, which is recognizable by the slow rising and then the lowering of the sound. Something like this.
Yeah.
While the first one was used in cities, the wail is used in rural areas. That's because the drawn-out sound has a higher chance of reaching the car that's being chased.
Oh, that's interesting.
Number 9. Police pretend they know all the laws.
They sure do.
Probably all of us have asked ourselves the following question. Do cops know all the laws and regulations? After all, they are the ones enforcing the law, so it would only seem fair that this would be the case. But in reality, cops oftentimes pretend to know the laws governing certain infringements. As one retired cop answered on Quora, cops know the usual stuff. They know that they need a warrant to search a property.
So I don't really like the porn music either, guys. I'm seeing some comments. Sounds like a porn soundtrack, whatever. But still, it's it's not bad. Not bad. You guys got some good information, but yeah, I agree. The John Holmes thing, it's not working for me.
They know when they can arrest someone and when they can't, etc. But the law is complex. New amendments are being added to it on a daily basis. Keeping up with all the laws would be a full-time reading job. That's why, many times, officers just like you need to smash that like button if you haven't done so already. But no, they actually don't know what to do. This, however, is not to say that you shouldn't comply with orders. That's stupid. When an officer tells you to step out of the vehicle, you do it. Believe me, it's for your safety. Number 8, they can snoop through your luggage. Hey, you can't do that. I've got Fourth Amendment rights. Well, yes and no. You see, in the case of 1997 of United States versus Tugwell, the Supreme Court determined that anyone who leaves their property unattended is forfeiting their right to privacy. And this is exactly why, if you leave your luggage unattended at the airport, police have the right to search it, no questions asked. And here we're thinking that they need a warrant to go through people's property. Turns out that's not really the case. If you're looking suspicious and go to the bathroom, you may find a German Shepherd snooping through your underwear compartment. Number 7, the tap on the back of your trunk. If you're ever stopped for speeding, you may have noticed that a cop is actually tapping the trunk of your car before walking up to the driver's seat. And if you thought it's just a coincidence, then think again. Namely, there are two reasons a cop would do this. One, to make sure the trunk is closed and that no one can jump from behind him and tackle him. Also, he needs to make sure it's properly secured. Second, they do this to leave their fingerprints on your car. So if, God forbid, you did decide to outrun the cops, then this little tap on the car could be used against you in court. You see, since the cop left his fingerprints on the car, this is further evidence that the officer and the criminal actually met, even if the rendezvous was brief. Number 6. Don't take coffee from a cop. Hey, what a nice officer. He offered you a cup of coffee just because. He's got to be a people person.
DNA.
Well, hold your horses, buckaroo. This might not really be the case. You see, the officer might actually have some other intentions. If a cop gives you a cup of coffee, this means he's after DNA. And if you take it, well, then you just received an unexpected DNA test. So if you actually are guilty, then the cop will have every right to arrest you, and the evidence will be used against you in court. Careful what you drink out of. Number 5. The thin blue line. This little one-liner had a book written about it.
Now you guys understand that, right? The Supreme Court has ruled time and time again that your trash is abandoned property and it's subject to forfeiture. So think about that before you try to, drink out of someone's cup at an event or somewhere where they could be trying to get your DNA. We know now they can even write mRNA sequences to target your whole family if they have the genetic sequencing. It could be done.
It had a movie made in its honor, and it has everything to do with the police. If you look at the flag, you will realize that it's a black rectangle with a thin blue line running across it. This represents the police force, keeping the population from descending to chaos and destruction. Since the cops are wearing blue uniforms, this seems appropriate, but the phrase didn't originate in America. It was actually the British that came up with this concept when they called their police force the Thin Red Line that held the enemy forces away during the Crimean War of 1854. Then, the LA police gave it a little twist in the early 20th century, and it caught on like wildfire. Number 4. They can speed. Have you ever seen a police officer pass a red light and even drive over the speed limit? How about make a U-turn, which is actually forbidden? Well, they might actually be allowed to do so. If the sirens are activated and the emergency lights are on, then the officer has the right to drive however he deems necessary to catch the criminal, all while not putting the lives of others at risk. If this is not the case, for example, they're not chasing after someone, then regular rules apply. Number 3. Cops and donuts is a stereotype.
That was pretty fair.
Have you ever seen a cop with a glazed donut in his hand while holding his gun in the other? Well, we have. But you know what? Cops are tired of the stereotype. And it all began back in the early 20th century.
Funny.
You see, back in the day, cops working the night shift had to go somewhere to eat. The only places that were open late at night were donut shops and gas stations. And while they went in for a cup of coffee and to get some paperwork done, they would often treat themselves to a glazed donut dinner. Thanks to marketing campaigns, movies, and a lot of stories,
right?
The stereotype has stuck ever since.
Yeah.
Number 2. Cops are allowed to lie to you.
There you go. That's what I've
If
been
you
telling
thought
you
that
guys.
cops are obliged to tell you the
lie to
truth, boy, are you in for a big surprise.
Yeah.
Not only are cops allowed to lie to you,
Cops are allowed
they're
to lie to you.
encouraged to do so.
Yes, they are.
Now, why might that be?
So they can get a conviction.
If they need to
raise
extract
revenue.
some valuable information out of you, you will often hear cops tell you these 4 lies. Number 1, we can get a search warrant within minutes. Just let us in.
They probably can.
Number 2, you'll receive a light sentence if you cooperate. Number 3, your fingerprints were all over the crime scene. And number 4, our personal favorite, we have an eyewitness.
Right, Brett.
Number 1, police officers avoid telling you about swatting. Because people have been harmed in these operations, the cops don't like to talk about them and give people the wrong idea. Namely, this was intended for people to stay safe. But trolls learn to make harmful jokes from this. What people do is they actually acquire a person's home address and they call the police. They tell them that a gruesome crime scene has taken place or is about to take place on the address of their choice. To spice things up, they might even say that the criminal is holding hostages. The police force responds, sending a SWAT team to the address.
Yeah.
In a matter of seconds, the door is busted open, the owner's pinned to the ground, and there's a ton of property damage
No
because of
Nazis.
this.
Boom.
No wonder cops keep this a secret from us. On a related note, do you think police officers are doing their job, or are they just racist? You can tell us in the comment section below. If you'd like more videos like these, don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
I was kind of liking that. Give me a bunch of ones if you like this guy's video. It's called the 10 secret tricks every police officer uses. Here, let me, I'm going to drop it in the sidebar for you guys. Hopefully you can click on it. I'm going to put it in there right freaking now. There you. Hopefully you guys can copy and paste it, but I think it was a pretty cool video. So I've got one more video about the Stingray thing. This is wild, you know, how I just think they're just completely circumventing our unalienable rights, especially the Fourth Amendment. Check out this last video I've got, guys. It's wild.
Whether you're here, here, or at one of these, it doesn't matter. This can find you. The common name, Stingray. Technically, a cell site simulator. First developed for military use, it's made its way into local law enforcement. It can track a person down to the room they're in if they have their cell phone on them. Stingrays turn these into homing devices, and that's just the beginning.
These are tracking devices. This is emitting a signal. This is GPS.
Mike Mino with the North Carolina branch of the ACLU has been watching the spread of Stingrays for years.
It's my understanding that the software that a lot of these devices use is capable of capturing things like your text messages, the numbers you're calling and receiving calls from. We know for sure they're getting people's location.
Here's how it works. Cell phones are always trying to connect to nearby cell towers. A Stingray acts like a cell tower decoy. In what's called a man-in-the-middle attack, it tricks cell phones into thinking it's the nearest cell tower. Phones connect to the Stingray, and police can access a range of personal information. But they don't just get intel on one phone. Every phone nearby is forced to divert to the Stingray. Calls are passed on to a real cell tower. Data scooped up stays with police.
When you ask them why they're using it, they'll say, well, we're targeting certain individuals. But the nature of the technology is so expansive that you cannot use this without countless innocent people having their data captured as well.
The I-Team has learned at least 3 law enforcement agencies in the Triangle have been using cell site simulators, but they don't like to talk about it and may not be allowed to. These 2 purchase orders show Raleigh and Durham police bought variations of the Stingray within the last 10 years. Raleigh's purchase order, obtained by the I-Team 2 years ago, shows the department paid more than $120,000 for the device. Separate documents obtained by the ACLU show Durham spent nearly twice that. In spite of those purchase orders, both departments claimed not to be using one when the I-Team asked recently. Raleigh says they stopped using theirs because of outdated technology. With the Stingray, though, secrecy is part of the deal. Durham's contract with the device's manufacturer includes a strict non-disclosure clause, not just about the Stingray, but about the agreement itself and its subject matter.
Isn't that unbelievable? So you have a public agency, tax funded. So they go ahead and they just enter into a non-disclosure agreement to buy this technology that could be potentially used to track you when you're going to the ATM machine, for example, right? It's like they know when you're going to the bank withdrawing money that good. So now they can do the civil asset forfeiture, take all your crap, right? Follow you around, listen to who you're, whatever you're doing. Maybe you're going to collect on a bet. Now they know where you're going to be. They have access to all that data and at taxpayer expense. And so they've signed a non-disclosure agreement that they're not allowed to talk about it. I mean, talk about how crazy that is and how, in my opinion, how unconstitutional that is for a public agency that's supposed to be upholding the Constitution and the Bill of Rights to enter into a contract that by design excludes the very people who it's supposed to apply to, right? The intended and the intentional and unintentional beneficiaries of the social contract to have law enforcement in these areas has been breached because those people are being denied the right to know what's going on with their data that's being taken from them in violation of the Fourth Amendment. Think about how disgusting that is, guys. I mean, that they could literally be using this technology to be doing that stuff. Now, I don't know, did we watch this whole thing? Let's keep on going. This is really freaking good, man.
There is such secrecy around this, and I think it's because it's so powerful.
I have a cell site simulator, and we do use it.
Wake Sheriff
sure he
Donnie
does.
Harrison is the only current law enforcement officer we could find here or elsewhere willing to talk even a little about the device and how it's used.
It's a very useful tool that we use, not only for the bad guys, but for looking
They're
people that are
spokesmen,
lost,
clearly.
looking people that say they're going to commit suicide. Sometimes we have used them for children that's missing that have phones.
Children that's missing.
And basically, that's all all I'm going to say about it.
Harrison told us Wake County has had a cell site simulator since 2008.
All right, so translation. This is great, guys. Well, what we use them there things to, look for the youngins, and them drugs and all that. But other than that, I ain't saying nothing else. So clearly, he's also bound by the terms of an NDA, and probably the corporation or the people selling those things. What is it called? Scorpion or whatever it's called. Probably said, this is the smartest out of all these guys we could find. Let's go ahead and give him the rights to say these few things to the public so we can keep making sales and, make this thing bowl over. Hopefully people will fall for it. Well, that's about all I'm going to say about it. In other words, I'm not really going to tell you that I'm using these things to target you and take away your money and your rights under the Constitution. Well, we're just doing, we'll get them kids back and targeting them drugs. Just insane.
8.
School
He
duggery.
insists they're always within the law and always get a warrant first.
Yeah, right.
But there's very little public documentation of those
Of
warrants
course.
or of the use of stingrays in general
they're
here or
lying
in
through their
any
teeth.
of the cities in which we looked.
But no, we don't like to talk about it. When a
They
general goes in
can't.
battle, he
They
doesn't
can't talk
give out
about
his
it.
battle plans.
It's the classic question, safety or privacy? Law enforcement will tell you these things get bad guys off the street and help good people out in the meantime.
Right.
Critics say we just don't know, and we don't, by design.
As long as we do it lawfully, I don't care what people say. My job is to keep people safe.
Yeah, the
public
SS
needs
said
to
that
know
too
more.
about the
I think
concentration
this is something
camps.
that the courts need to know more about. There are real questions about whether a technology that soaks up innocent people's data
crazy.
can be used constitutionally.
Anyways, you guys get the idea. I mean, it's like legal spying, following you around, chasing your cash. You get the idea, right? So give me a bunch of ones if you like the program tonight. If there's anything you want me to change, let me know. I don't really have a lot of time tonight to get into anything else, but I'm hoping that it was good. I'll try to make some shorts for you guys as well out of it. I'll try to edit it into some short clips. Let me see if there's any questions that I have in the sidebar really quick before we close out, guys. Dave Ellis says I should ask my sheriff if we have one around here. You should. You'll say law enforcement is the government, but nope, law enforcement is a community of legal while the government is lawfully limited by the Constitution. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that most of the municipal police they have no duty to protect you under the Constitution. Their job is to protect municipal corporations. There's very limited circumstances where a law enforcement officer would have a duty to protect an individual. And we saw that play out in the riots, the Rodney King riots, where the only people who were really safe in the danger zone were the Korean shopkeepers because they were armed to the teeth with AR-15s, AKs, and sawed-off shotguns, all stuff that was later declared illegal under the Liberties assault weapons law that made it harder for law-abiding citizens to defend themselves. And so we see that playing out quite a bit, that, they'll have the local law enforcement agencies out there, and you'll see that they're primarily just like raising revenue, writing traffic violations, parking tickets. They'll hire a code enforcement officer to write parking tickets and have all these tricks up their sleeve, with the meters and all that, just crazy stuff. A lot of these municipalities will do. You go to Newport Beach, or not Newport, Laguna Beach, California, and you park in the paid parking in the parking structures over by, the downtown part of Laguna, the shops, right? So you cruise in. If your tire is on the white line that separates the parking stalls, they'll write you a ticket for that. I mean, it's that crazy. And it's like $70 or $80. I mean, it's real money. And they don't mess around. I mean, they'll aggressively pursue that money, and they'll come after you. They're just like despots. So these municipal corporations, they're desperate for money, and they see traffic violations and civil asset forfeiture is just another way to raise money so they can pay for their bloated salaries. And let's face it, government employees, that's what they do. They grow the bureaucracy, and it's at your expense. And that's why there is becoming. It used to be that people would become public servants, have a small pension, and retire. And now we see it's flipped, where the middle class is now like the pensioner, right? And the government employees are making bank. They'll get a job here, be a judge for a while, work over at CNN, get a gig there, do some JDAMs, get a gig there. And they're making big bucks, like 17,000 extra a month doing these side gigs, using, the fact that they were in government, where, and the taxpayers are just scratching their head. What the hell happened to our country? Give me a bunch of ones if you think that's crazy, because I sure do. But we'll talk about that in another show. Thanks, Kurt Bronson. I appreciate that. And then let me see here. Yeah, regardless of any nonsense anyway, says, what's the matter, you? Yeah, it was a pretty cool show. What do you guys want me to talk about next time? I don't think I'm going to go live tomorrow, but I will do another one like maybe midweek. What are you guys interested in learning about? I mean, we've got, there's been a lot of stuff going on with like Haitians eating people's pets, and the ones who were invited here by the Biden administration when they opened the borders at the start of his administration and started flying them in, and now they're going to like duck parks and geese parks, and taking them home with them. If you guys have seen some of the images, let me know if you want me to talk about that. What the legalities could be, punishments, penalties, why America has different laws when it comes to animals than maybe Haiti does. Maybe that's why we should probably vet people before we let them in the country, to make sure they're on board with the American way of life. So we stock our duck ponds. We get to keep feeding the ducks without seeing our ducks being hauled off when we're bringing our kids to the duck park. What do you think, guys? Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. Anyways, if you guys have anything else you want me to talk about, I just can't get over what I'm seeing. It's just like growing up at, in the age of Reagan, when we were all about a USA, and seeing like just the whole society collapse almost overnight in less than 3 years. It's blowing my mind. So I really appreciate you guys joining me tonight. Always make sure to take a look, get a digital version of the soft cover. I have a cheap version of this in digital, but it's got the same book cover. My Journey of Becoming a Practicing Lawyer with No Law Degree or Undergrad. That's a way you could help me support the channel, so I can help you kill a couple hours every once in a while on YouTube, so you don't have to watch faux news or the Communist News Network. You can watch something that at least is from a real person who cares about you. Anyways, if you want, you just go to my YouTube homepage, and if you go onto the description, just click on the PayPal link and buy a digital copy of my book. That's a great way to support my channel. And then obviously buying memberships, so that way we don't have to split the money with these chi-coms and these commies that run YouTube, right, guys? But yeah, I appreciate you guys joining me. And Nissy Prius, bend over, says, bend over. I will incorporate a little bit about Nissy Prius into reminds me of Ralph Riley, man. Okay, I'm gonna call my buddy Ralph Riley and see if he can give me some tips. Maybe we can even have him come on one of the shows, because my buddy Ralph's all about Nisi Prius. And Kurt Bronson, Dave Ellis. Yes, I'm still proud to be an American too, brother. Always. Especially, you know, someone with skin in the game, you know, like guys like me and BZ Watchdog, you know, we actually went through it, you know, went through the whole boot camp thing, and we're willing to sacrifice our lives and put everything on the risk, you know, for our countrymen. And just to see our government just allow these people from countries that are just complete shitholes, where they don't even have respect for their own societies, just to be allowed to come across and get free phones, free hotels, take our ducks and eat our cats. Now I'm seeing stories about that as well. Venezuelan prison gangs, and CNN and PMSNBC just covers it up and pretends like it's no big deal. I mean, that should be enough to tell you right there, guys, that should be criminal. Like they basically made themselves the enemy of the American people. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. By not discussing these things that are so important while they live on their $1 million a year salaries in Hollywood or Beverly Hills, wherever they're living in their walled communities with their paid security. We're suffering the consequences of this forced immigration. You know, it's destroying our country just like it's destroyed Europe. Look at France. Look at the UK. Their societies are just ruined. I mean, constant assaults against the women and children by these immigrants. And the government says that you're a racist if you talk about it, or if you do a social media post about it. That's crazy, guys. We should be like forming parallel systems and fighting back against those types of things. So I encourage all of you guys, once again, if you have a business or you're selling something that's, you know, that you can offer to my members and you'd like me to help you, reach out to me. I'm creating a page on my website where I'll put a link to your product and help you, and we'll do mentions and have you come on as guests. And all you guys, Matthew, Benjai, Steve Quarter, all you guys, parallel systems, man. Stop talking about it and do it. You know, reach out to me. Let's form parallel systems. There's no reason why, you know, if you make socks or you make quality tennis shoes, for example, or whatever it might be, knives, guns, whatever it is, that one of us might not want to purchase that from you. And we'd rather purchase it from you than go to like a Target where they're teaching all this like Lucifer worship with all this religious woke crap that they're trying to push on our kids. You know, if you want to get away from that, homeschool, homestead, you know, family farm, you know, look after your neighbor in a way where you can still have your independence, but form parallel systems where, you know, you support people with small businesses and small farms and you look after them. Even if you don't need their product, if you've got the extra money, support them, because it's so rare now to find people who are willing to stand up and fight for the Constitution and fight for families and what's right in this country. So I think if we all start forming these parallel systems, there's strength in numbers too. Once these guys like Zuck and stuff see there's millions of us, you know, they're going to start heeding. They're going to start listening. And so I encourage all of you guys to do that. So with that being said, bend over and age go and all that. Make sure parallel systems. I'll talk to you guys within the next couple of days. I'm looking out for your emails or text messages about what other shows you'd like me to cover besides Nisi Prius. And God bless all you guys. And with that being said, make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because we never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel. All right, guys. Talk to you soon.